In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 accounts of abuse that happened over the past 7 years in houses that I was renting, my public financial castigation, misinformation in many of the allegations that have been thrown towards me, and finally, my own personal accountability as it relates to this entire situation. If you are unaware about what this is about, I will be leaving reading information for you in a Google Doc, and also in that same document will be every picture that you see on the screen here. None of this is going to be comfortable to hear, but when something goes above and beyond that point of like discomfort, I'll be putting a trigger warning on the screen for you just to warn you. For each account, I'm going to tell you what happened and the actions that I took in those moments. First 2 cases of abuse happened in the first iteration of the Sky House, which was founded in 2014 and lasted until 2015. And at the time, there were about 20 to 24 people living in there. The first survivor is Jisu, and I'm going to call her abuser V. V's conception into my home was that he knew Mewtwo King. Mewtwo King was living with me at the time, and he was very good friends with Mewtwo King. So he just said, I'm gonna move in with him, because they were already planning on living together. I've known Mewtwo King for over 10 years, and I know that V was an esteemed Smash player, so of course I just said yes. V explained that he's going to be working on his game while he's living here. He said that he had 2 people that were going to come with him to work on the game. He enticed me by saying that if they come, it's going to be lower rent for everybody. Even though we did have 20 people living in that house, there was like a room that was available for him and his needs. So I just said, okay, yeah, sure, come on. Everybody else was happy to pay a little less rent. I was not told that one of those people would be Jisu, and it was never disclosed to me that she was a minor. They arrived around July 18th. I didn't have any idea that they actually moved into the house until I went to go to their room later on that night. The noise of the moving furniture they were moving in was just drowned out by the hustle and bustle of 20 people. I was streaming at the time, and it is literally impossible for me to see anyone come through the front door while I'm streaming, while I'm at my computer. I eventually made my way into their room. I kind of already was acquainted with V, but then I saw Jisu. I noticed that Jisu looked extremely young, but in my mind, I genuinely thought there is no way that someone is trafficking a minor into my house all the way from Ohio, so I didn't think about it. I didn't want my first conversation with her to be, "Hi, my name is Sky. How old are you?" So instead, I introduced myself, I shook her hand, and I left. Jisu rarely left her room. She was always working on that game with V. The only time that she would leave her room is when she would storm out and Zero would be laughing behind her. Jisu had reached out to me wondering if I remember Zero flashing transgender sex workers on Craigslist just to get a rise out of her. I don't know if that happened all the time, but I did witness it once, except it wasn't the transgender sex workers, it was hentai. One time she was just walking through the halls and a lot of us were in the living room and one person just point blank asked her, "How old are you?" She told us she was 16. After finding out she was a minor, I had a lot more concern about what she was doing here, why was she coming with V, so later on I visited her again and she was working on a 3D program and I asked, "Oh, what program is this?" V actually answered and said, "Oh, it's a 3D program that I'm having her learn from scratch because we need it to, for the assets of our game." And I asked, "Well then wait, why shouldn't you get someone for that already knows the program?" And then he answers, "No, she's a genius. She's gonna get it really fast." Beyond nodding and smiling, she didn't say anything, which was odd, but I just left and I left it at that. Over the course of the next few weeks, my entire goal was just to get closer to her. I didn't have a lot of time because at the time I was actually making content and streaming a lot, but when I did have pockets of time, I would go in and try to establish a friendship with her. However, I noticed that if V was there in the room when I was trying to talk to Jisu, it would basically be Jisu just speaking for her. It was rare for me to hear her speak her own mind when she was in a room with V. She qualifies that assumption for me later when she tells me that she appreciated the fact that I would just stand next to her even if she wouldn't respond to me and when I would ask her how she's doing, because she did not have her own ability to speak her own mind because V was there. There was an occasion when I caught her alone and she was a completely different person. She was obviously responding, we were talking. I asked her if she was interested in creating her own brand because her art was amazing. We had made more plans to talk about it later on that day, but then when I came back, V was there and she told me that she couldn't be distracted because she was working on the game. There was one time when I came to visit, Jisu's computer was still on. I saw the soft glow and it was on V's face and V was playing a game and I go over, but she's asleep. She's asleep in the bunk. But then I realized that all of the bunks are taken and the only place for V to sleep is in that bunk because she's pushed up all the way at the end of it. That to me was an invitation to take my investigation and my concern further. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, how I was going to ask, how I was even going to get him alone to ask, but luckily I didn't have to wait too long because V approached me with a document. He gave it to me on Facebook and said that Jisu's parents need me to sign this because she's going to start going to school here. I was definitely disturbed, but I was happy to sign something if it meant that she had an opportunity here. But in that same conversation, I point blank asked him, "Are you sexually active with Jisu?" He says, "LOL, no." After this question, V completely changed his attitude towards me, as did Jisu. They started closing and locking their doors, putting up blanket barriers over their room. It got a lot harder to like access them. You know, you couldn't just walk in anymore. You would kind of have to be like, hey, like, and then you'd pretty much get gate kept right there. By like, oh no, I'm busy or I can't talk right now. Jisu went from politely saying that she just had to focus on this to telling me to like, you know, mind my own business or stop trying to get me to not work on the game. Like she doesn't want to work on her own brand. Stop talking about it. She only wants to work on V's game. Just stuff like that. She alleged that I was evil and I was just trying to get her away from working on V's game even though it was her dream. She later expressed that the only reason why she said anything like that was because V convinced her that I was evil and I was trying to ruin their game. At that point, I would say that she was pretty hostile to me. The level of sheer passion and devotion that she had for that game and V completely threw me off the trail of any malfeasance at all. The house had talked about it. This definitely wasn't like a secret. Everyone kind of had their own speculation. My roommate Lauren and I were probably the most involved in trying to figure out a way to help her. Lauren was extremely concerned and we both were trying to figure out the correct way to do this without traumatizing her. But word gets around. Everyone knew. Everyone that lived there kind of knew that there was something happening that was like just very weird. What threw me off my trail was that 6 people were living in that room. And I would think that if they were engaging in sexual activity, one of them would come forward, but you know, no one allegedly heard anything. I wasn't satisfied with that, but it was hard to beat because they were in the room all the time. How could you not know? Guess I'm wrong. Lauren definitely was able to go and talk to Jisu from artist to artist. It was a lot easier to connect and she had a much better relationship with her. And it paid off. One day, Jisu walks in the hallway and approaches the 2 of us kind of randomly and kind of explains that she does care about her own brand and she thanks us for not giving up, I guess, which was surprising to me, but it seemed like it was right on the message for Lauren, so good on her for that. My conflict here was that I was uncomfortable, but I also just signed something to help her go to school. It made me feel like if I did anything to jeopardize that, I would be kind of screwing up her future. I don't know. That was just my mindset. I just want to share it with you. Months later, we got mild confirmation that sexual activity happened when a roommate that was sleeping in the bunk above them felt shaking and also heard the opening of a condom wrapper. That is what he alleges. When they were done, he gets out of bed, he gets a few of us into my room, and then he directly just tells us what he found. Even though he only grabbed probably like a handful of us, the entire house knew what we had found within hours. When I confronted V privately, at first it was like a mild denial, but then it was like followed up with the age of consent is 16 in Ohio. I didn't want to call the police only because of my own personal experiences with sexual abuse and calling the police. Police reports are pretty effective, but in my experience, when I survived my rape, I know that the male police officer tried to convince me that it was my fault because I was in an AOL chat room, in a gay AOL chat room. And so then it's like I must have engaged in conversation that caused it. The biggest hang up I had was that in my case of rape, my attacker broke into my house, you know, did what he did, and then he left. I never got the option. No one ever asked me what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to give her the option, but I couldn't get close to her. I couldn't talk to her. So I kind of just froze. My options just froze, and I'm just wondering, like, if any of this is even real. Again, there were 6 people in that room, and then they heard nothing. There was someone sleeping above their bunk the whole time, and he never said anything about it. Is it possible the person heard something completely that wasn't sexual? Maybe he was mistaken. And it felt like everybody knew, but maybe only a few of us actually really were alarmed and actually cared, which led me to believe there's a possibility that I'm overreacting and this isn't bad. If I was wrong, I could be ruining a big opportunity for her to be here in LA where Riot is and all these, you know, wonderful art schools are. Maybe things genuinely were just platonic and fine and they actually were working on that game and it was just because she was really talented and young. Like, all of those thoughts are racing in my head. I had no real options. I was a coward and I gave up. Not long after, they said they were visiting Ohio, like they're gonna visit their family, but they ended up staying out a lot longer. It was like for months. And then they had talked about potentially moving into a mansion with Mewtwo King, because MVG was getting a mansion in Arizona or something. You know, I had told V, if you wanna live somewhere else, and it's free, then I mean, you just take it. Like, I mean, that's just the smarter option. But I really just wanted to know what they were doing because no one was telling me anything. With their sudden disappearance, I had absolutely no idea if they were going to come back. But then Jisu had reached out to me and clarified this for me. It wasn't hard confirmation, but in these messages, Jisu had just said that she feels bad for not being here. She really wants to preserve their friendship between she and I, and she hopes we can work in the future because she sensed that I'm upset. The whole thing was upsetting. And she knows that I'm just mad, and she's reaching out to me and she's telling me, thank you for everything that you've done. You were a better friend to me than most. She apologizes for leaving things like she did. She hopes that we can work in the future. And she says that she felt that I did more for her than anyone in those dark times. which really stuck with me, and I appreciate that. We all still failed her, but those are the accounts of what happened and the information that I have access to. Next up is Brandon Woodie versus MacD. The first incident occurred in Jisu and V's room. MacD dry humped Woodie over a futon. Brandon and I went and spoke about this outside soon after. I asked if he wants to file a police report, and I had no problem helping him. He said that he felt that he was being dramatic, which I disagreed because I felt that it was an appropriate response. If you're feeling uncomfortable, that's you. But no, he told me he was fine, and so then we went back inside. The second incident is one I did not hear or see while the act was in progress. Woodie, MacD, and a roommate were outside. Allegedly, when the roommate went inside, I guess MacD reached his hand in Woodie's shirt and then groped them. The only thing that I can confirm from this is that at the time I heard someone open the door. I turned around, the roommate did come inside, and the only two people I saw out there were MacD and Woodie. That's the only thing that I saw. After this, Woodie was adamant that he didn't want to seek any litigation versus MacD, but he wanted it to stop. So what I did was I took the three of us and we talked about it, and I let Brandon speak whatever he wanted to do. I do not remember the content of the talk, but I can tell you that Brandon made his personal space extremely clear in that talk. I remember that. I didn't understand their dynamic at all, so I wanted to sit for Woodie's safety just to make sure that things are going fine. The third incident actually happened inside McCain's bed, and I did not see the conception of this at all, but a roommate did, and they gave me a testimony on it, and I'm gonna obviously show it to you. They testified that Woodie was the one that was kind of encouraging it and the one that started it. It was pretty much the initiator of the event, I guess. When I heard that, I just had no choice but to call him troubled, because I know that when I talked to him, he was very clear about what he did and didn't want. But if this was consensual, then there would be no problem. Someone actually came to me and told me this was going on, so of course I get up and I go in the room. There's actually 3 others in the room, by the way. MacD is spooning Brandon under blankets, and I'm watching and I'm looking, and Brandon's looking at me, and I cannot tell if it's uncomfortable or if it's just like, oh, it's whatever, he doesn't care. I don't know. Now, I didn't know anything about who started what or what the situation was. Someone just told me that they were in bed together. I felt like this was another incident beginning, so I didn't want to get all forceful, so instead I just sang an impromptu, stupid, frustrating song that was just loud enough so that obviously it was kind of like a siren, you just knew, yeah, we're not doing this today. And of course it split them up. Brandon got up and left the room, and then they were separated, and that was great. It's been 6 years. And since then, I have learned about grooming. I did have a strong opinion about this, but my stance on it has completely changed. In my twitlonger, you will see me chastising Woodie because he shares texts with me about how he wants to now watch House of Cards and cuddle with McCain because he feels that he understands him better. I was very, very upset with that because it was like, I feel like you're putting yourselves in these situations and I don't know why. You talk about how disgusted you are, but then you do it. Obviously, now that I'm much older, I look at it a lot differently. Trauma and abuse comes in many forms, and me trying to use a universal compass to navigate the waters of trauma and abuse is unacceptable and not okay at all. The last incident was during a board game. It was me, MacD, Woodie, and D1. MacD was sitting on a couch and Woodie was sitting kind of where his legs were, on the floor, Indian style. D1 was sitting on the right side of him and I was sitting on the left. Basically, while we were playing, MacD started rubbing his shoulders. Now, obviously me and D are looking at this with everything else that's happened. It's like, oh, what the fuck is going on? Our solution here was saying things like, oh, it's Woodie's turn. Time for everyone to keep their hands to themselves. Something like that. Just very general things. And D1 would say something like, it's Brandon's turn. He's gonna need his whole body to move that piece. Something like that, whatever it was. This actually stopped the interaction for 45 minutes. But then when MacD rubbed his shoulders one more time, Woodie was done with it. He got up from the desk, went to his computer, and that was it. Put on his headphones and didn't say a single thing. The third and fourth incidences happened in the second house, the second Sky house. Around 14 to 20 people lived in this home during those times. This took place between August 2015 and August 2016. This account is not long at all, but I'm going to have to read it directly from my phone because of how absolutely specific it is, and I cannot embellish a single thing because of the privacy of the victim. So this is the account of the victim's contact, H, and the abuser, E. H themselves didn't get abused, but someone close to them did by E. On November 27th, 2015, H approached me, frantically needing to talk to me about something that I had to stay quiet about. Off the bat, they told me not to do anything at all, as they wanted to figure out what to do, which is why all these pictures are going to be heavily edited. I was sent these pictures of E sending perverted messages to the victim. My reaction was instantaneous panic and disbelief. Then they came forward with other accounts of misogyny and problematic behaviors. Before I could take any action, the person told me that they do not want me involved, and the best course of action is to wipe my hands completely clean of the situation. E approached me in my room about this, and I simply told him that the best thing he can do is confront H directly about this and be open to whatever punishment comes. That's it. Next is Zero and Vanessa. I don't have any screenshots of these events because they happened right in front of me. I know that Vanessa chastised Jisu heavily for saying that the information that she put out was wrong and that she just, he never did anything to her, and she was very mad at her for putting it in her twitlonger. This does not come from a place of malice or shade or backstabbing. This happened under my roof, and as such, it's a truth that deserves to be told to the best of my ability. I cannot speak on any of the other allegations that has happened with Zero concerning Katie and a variety of other things. I can only speak on what I have seen, and that is what I'm going to speak on now. So Vanessa's sitting on the couch. Maurice is playing a video game, and I'm watching him play. Zero comes upstairs. He's not that thrilled. He wants Vanessa to come back down, but Vanessa wants to hang out. So then Zero goes back downstairs, and Vanessa, after a moment, feeling the tension, goes down and consoles him. A little time passes, and then Zero comes out alone and then sits on the couch and watches Maurice play Mortal Kombat. He and I are just completely silent. We're just, just chilling. Vanessa comes out and sits down next to Zero and holds him, like literally on the couch, just holds him and, holds him close, and then they watch the game for a little bit. My roommate's dog, Oliver, comes through and jumps up on the couch. For about a split second, Vanessa lets go of Zero, pets the dog like, "Oh, Oliver," and then goes back to hugging Zero. Zero gets up really fast and says, "If you want to be with the dog, then be with the dog," and then storms off into his room. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm hysterically laughing because I thought it was a joke. But then Vanessa had assured me that it was not a joke. Vanessa kind of sat silently for a moment, and then she began to talk to me about it. She said that while she felt that it was funny too, it's just Zero has been struggling heavily with being homesick, and it's affected his mood completely. And that's why he wants her to hug him and hold him. He really, really likes physical attention. And so she's just said that, don't judge him, don't get mad at him. He's just going through it right now. And I can attest to that. I do know that he struggled with being homesick a lot, and there was something going on at home, and I can just co-sign that he definitely was struggling in that way. Now, being homesick is no excuse for being abusive at all. I am only just saying this because she was right. She wasn't just making it up to on the spot defend him. She was accurate. The second incident is on New Year's, and I will not lie to you, obviously it's New Year's. I was extremely drunk, but I have a very good grasp on what happened. There are some unforgettable moments, which is why. Vanessa was arguing with Zero because Vanessa wanted to, be out and be just not downstairs. She didn't want to watch him play 999 all day anymore. She wanted to be out and hang out. Zero had been talking very calmly and saying can we go talk about this? Can we do whatever? Which I think Vanessa didn't really want to do. So then, this is the only part that's fuzzy, but to the best of my memory, I think that Vanessa went to go to the bathroom just to clean her face up. But Zero followed her, and then they both ended up in the bathroom together talking about things. We just kind of left it as it was, and about 5 minutes later, we hear something hit the wall, and then a metal sound clanking on the floor. Then Vanessa's loudly saying let go of me. And then obviously we all get the hell up and run. The door is open. Zero helps Vanessa up, and the towel rack is on the floor. Zero was speaking calmly again and trying to get her to just deal with this in the downstairs, and kind of was saying that, kind of assuring us that nothing happened. But Vanessa said, "No, something did happen. I have evidence." And that, by the way, was the example of the defining moment. I remember vividly she saying, "Something did happen. I have evidence." 100% she said that. And the evidence was the towel rack on the floor, obviously. She had said that Zero grabbed her arm and started hitting himself with it. I don't know if it was on his face or his arm, but grabbed his, her arm and hit himself with it. When she tried to just pull away, that's when she knocked into the towel rack. He didn't push her into the towel rack. She was trying to get away, and then yeah, that was what she had said. After that was said, Zero kind of just wandered back down to his room. One of our roommates went to go check on him, and Vanessa stayed outside with the majority of us, and we were just kind of letting her. She was crying, and we were consoling her, and she was just trying to catch her breath. They ended up quickly reconciling, even after all of that. Vanessa in no way, shape, or form wanted any of us to take any action on this. Didn't want kick him out, didn't want to make a twitlonger or whatever. Like, she just said, leave it here. It was a one-time thing. It'll never happen again, I promise. And it never happened again. So we just moved on because she requested us to. My whole thing is giving the victim something that I never got, which is a choice. So I respected her choice. I respected what she was saying. And I know that that's a very disappointing answer to hear, but I'm just telling you the truth of what happened. And finally, this is the account of Shiva versus Keitaro. All of this is going to be triggering. I'm even dreading saying it. Just know, once it gets to a climax of triggering, I'm going to put an even more severe warning for you, okay? This last account occurred at the Sky Mansion in LA. This property was massive, and it happened during a party. I don't have any screenshots to provide, and for the majority of the party, I was in my room, which is on a different wing of the house, but I do have his twitlonger. It's riddled with things that couldn't possibly be true. 2 roommates and herself have given me testimony that fills in a lot of the gaps and blanks of that twitlonger, and that's what I'm going to be using. Shiva was invited by Keitaro, who himself was a secondhand guest. So one of my roommates invited someone who invited Keitaro, who invited her. Keitaro's twitlonger alleges that she took 4 shots to the head while they were playing Smash, but that just doesn't follow for me. She's a small girl. And 4 shots like that would have just demolished her. She would be done. She took 4 shots periodically at every 1.5 games. Like, it wasn't just like 1, 1, 1, 1. No, it was in moderation. Then they go to the pool. She says she doesn't have a swimsuit. Keitaro says, I have a shirt. She accepts the shirt. My roommate had told me that there were a bunch of guys out there at the time and very few girls, maybe even just her, which leads me to believe that when she said she didn't have a bathing suit, I'm wondering if instead that was her way of trying to say like, oh, I don't really want to go into a pool with all these guys because, you know, I don't know anybody and I don't even know where I am. But when he offered the shirt, obviously her excuse was kind of shot down immediately. When I asked her that, she confirmed that she felt uncomfortable, but then, you know, she was starting to get drunk and she had the shirt. The entire time, she has also told me that Keitaro was not drunk. He was not drinking. So he was sober during these interactions. I'm going to remind you of that in a bit. He then says, after some time, she starts trying to hold me. I believe that she was doing that because if you're going to be in a pool, again, full of guys, you're going to probably want to stay close to someone that invited you there that you trust. After some time, she began to rub her face against mine, which eventually made me think that she wanted to kiss me. I attempted to avoid it for a couple minutes, but eventually I went with it and kissed her. If you're the adult in that situation, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. That is up to you to tell her to be like, whoa, okay, hold on. But he says, I yelled, what are you doing? But didn't stop anything afterwards. By this time, I assume that she's actually getting to the point where she's going to be extremely drunk. But if you're in a pool full of guys and you said, what are you doing? There's no way that no one just heard that, looked at you, and then did nothing. Like, that just doesn't seem right. And that's what hurts the most because he had the opportunity to tell the truth, but he stopped it there. And that is not where her abuse stopped. At the very least, tell the whole truth so that people will stop calling her a liar and actually give her validation for her own self so she don't think that she's crazy. She gave me permission to finish the account for you, so I will. The assault happened in an empty room on the basement floor. I know this because she said the last thing that she remembers is being led down like stone and brick stairs, and I know exactly where that is and exactly where they were going. She said that she laid still while he her. She was still soaking wet and she didn't move. When it was done, I guess she wanted to go back to a public area but didn't know how to get there, so she requested to go back to the rec room. For anyone that's not familiar with being drunk, you do have periods of just like blacking out and like being there and kind of having like loose memories, so that's why this follows. It just makes sense to me because I have been that drunk before. She wanted to go back up to the rec room. He led her up to the rec room, but of course now she's just completely sick and she's gonna vomit, so she goes to the bathroom and she just throws up. My second roommate found them, Keitaro and her, in the bathroom while she was throwing up. Keitaro asked my roommate to grab a water for her, which he did. Like most parties, I'm really just in my room playing League, and I'll occasionally take some shots. I'll walk around the house. I'll just try to see what everyone's doing, make sure nothing's broken, shit like that. When I entered the rec room, I noticed this young girl on a beanbag, soaking wet, passed out drunk in a room full of men. When I went to look at her, I couldn't tell if she was a minor, but I knew that she had no business being passed out drunk again in a room full of guys in a rec room. This disgusted me, so I looked around the room to see if anybody brought her here, but no one would meet eye contact with me, which I pretty much assumed, because that shit is clearly fucking unacceptable. I felt that the situation was unsafe and terrible, so I picked her up in my arms. This is how she knew that I truly didn't know, because when I picked her up in my arms, and I was going to take her to a place, Keitaro goes, oh, hey, can you take her to a place to sleep? As soon as he said that, it completely evaporated all of my suspicions of malfeasance because I trusted him. I've known him for over 10 years. We're not besties, but we've been acquainted. We're in the Smash community. We grew up together. So him saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, nigga, I got you. So what I do is I take her, she's in and out of consciousness. She's holding onto my neck. I take her downstairs and I take her to a very, very quiet, private place to sleep. I grab her a blanket, some pillows, a bottle of water. I lay her down, I set her up, and then I just let her sleep. I was approached later by somebody that wanted more information about this because they were going to go forward to the COC and try to get some actual action done because something had happened under my roof, which I genuinely did not know about. And I told them that this was very shocking. They thought that I was covering for Keitaro, but I definitely was not. I had assisted them in the best of my capacity. But those are all of the things that transpired that I know about when it pertains to Shiva and Keitaro. A lot of people have told me to be careful about making this video because of litigation and other things that can pursue, but it felt kind of like an insult to the victims to use now to be safe to protect my own self when I should have been safer before to protect them, so I won't. My telling of these accounts are the facts that I know to be true with as many receipts as I can find. Every person involved has all of my permission to go through any receipts they have if they feel that I am being deceitful or if I'm protecting an abuser. If I got information incorrect, I beg of you to know that that is literally just faulty memory, nothing malicious. My personal thoughts, feelings, and accountability will be talked about at the end of this video. Next, I'm going to talk about the money. I have accrued upwards of $250,000 in personal loans in the last 7 years. This debt exists because the lifestyle that I was trying to live was simply unobtainable, and I thought that if I had a little help, maybe I can get the flow going so I can make that money that I used to make, but it never happened. I moved to a new house almost every single year, and doing that kind of fresh start made me believe that I can get my life back on track. I can, okay, now let's start this new fresh house. Okay, new life, new me, all that kind of stuff. But the upgrades in homes and the more demanding my financial obligations got to myself and everybody else that was, around me, I couldn't recover. And my brand already flopped just because of inactivity and depression, so I was stuck. The rent of the homes that I lived in were as follows. The first home was $5,400. The second one was $7,900. The third one was $3,750. And the mansion was $9,200. By the second home, I was paying about 80% of the rent. We did have a rent split, but on the low, I was paying for pretty much half of the house. They didn't have the money, I would give it to them and pretend they gave it to me. In the last two homes, not only did I pay for 90+% of the rent, but I paid for a lot of food as well. I believed that we as housemates had a lot of unique and individual talents and skills, and I thought that there could be a way to utilize all of us into one giant project. I was always very excited to work with them, but it never happened. I could never bring myself to do it. I was just paralyzed. It would come and go. Sometimes I would feel very confident. And in those moments is when I would ask for money because they'd be like, okay, if I just get past this rent hurdle right now, the motivation I feel right now, I'm ready to just gun through this. And then a week later and I just feel like, just quitting everything. And this cycle would just continue. To me, in my heart, I always knew that I was going to pay people back. I never thought that I was going to escape this. Even though it was more and more money and now it's obviously this grossly massive amount, I never once doubted myself for paying it because everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows where I am. I mean, you're seeing it now. This is exactly if I was trying to run out on it, this is exactly what would happen. And my entire life is entertainment. So it's I had no choice. This just has to be paid. But I kept thinking that I was going to get my groove back. I kept thinking that I was going to make it again, and then I never did. The reason why I couldn't just break off the cycle for myself, just stop it, and obviously when I knew that it was problematic and hemorrhaging money, was mostly because after an entire year of living with these people, none of them had a savings. None of them saved money. Many of them didn't get jobs because they didn't really have to. I mean, sure, there were people with jobs, but eventually I would cover you. That was pretty much the MO. So if you didn't have any savings, you didn't have any money saved up, I just felt so shitty because I would be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go do this now. Fantasy house is over. And I felt if we just had more time to connect, more time to just do what we were all trying to do, then it would work out. And obviously it did not. Now, obviously the Sky House is over. It's been over for 7 months. And I want to give a shout out or a thanks to these people. These are their initials. FR, AF, TF, MM, JT, LS, MC, CL, IR, and a few more I know that I'm forgetting. They were very, very, very important voices for me who really shook me and told me this is not what your life needs to be. And they guided me to this, to this it was very difficult for me to do, but I ended it and now I live in a different place that is not the Sky House at all. So when I woke up, somebody was actually generous enough to give me money in order to get out of my lease and go to this house, pay for the deposit, knowing that my credit was shit, just to escape the situation. So I did just that. I entered the Sky House on January 31st of this year. And now I live in a completely different place, much cheaper rent with 3 people. It's not completely ideal because my credit's bad. I didn't get like the best deal, but it's way better than what it used to be. People have criticized me by saying that just because all this is coming out, now you're trying to pay people back, and that is absolutely not true. The moment that I moved into this home, or I even knew that I was moving into this home, I reached out to several of my creditors and I told them, this is it. This is how it's going to happen. I am moving into this house and I'm going to be a stream fiend and I am going to chip away at this debt until it is all gone. That is things that I have been saying way before any of this was brought up. I made plans with my mentor. I literally talked to him about how we are going to pay off this $200,000 debt this year, and we had a plan in place. A while back, I started a business called Fifth Class. It's really nothing special. It's just what I wanted to call my sketch comedy team if I ever had made one. In that bank account, we set aside a separate account strictly to pay people back, and we did this back, I think, in March or February. In order to please my creditors, I started streaming immediately. I had figured that, of course, people are going to be annoyed with how long I've been taking to pay them back. But I thought that if they just saw me working hard at it, even though it's frustrating, they would be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And so that is what some people said. Some people reached out and they noticed that I was going in, and I told them that, yes, I'm doing this no matter what. I'm paying you this money this year, no exceptions. I streamed for just about 70 days in a row, something I haven't done for 5 years. And these were not short streams. By the time I streamed for like 30 days in a row, they were like 8-hour streams each. I reached out to 3 people that I owed money to, and I immediately began paying them $500 a month. This lasted for about 2.5 months. There was one that I fell short, $250. But yeah, for now, that was my plan. Just start chipping away at these debts slowly. And I know that it started a lot slower than I wanted it to, but I was just trying to get myself back. I was confident that I can make it back this year for sure, for everybody, because I had gotten such overwhelming, great advice and support from LS, or Austin, formerly Raj. When it came to actually monetizing myself a lot better and believing that I am not washed up, that I could be something big, they were just on top of it. From what they taught me and showed me, making this money would be a breeze. They would show me people with like 1/3 of my viewership making 3 times as much as I was by just making simple choices. I had pledged to stream 100 days in a row. If I would have made it, that's when I would have started implementing all of the things that they were teaching me, only because then I would know, at least for myself, that I'm serious about this, and I was close. LS in particular went above and beyond the call of duty to help me as much as he could. And I think that's why I found so much happiness in streaming, and that's why I was very eager to just keep streaming every single day, is because I knew that I had his support and his wisdom and what he's learned and all of it. And I should have listened to him sooner, because he's been telling me this for years. And I never thought that I could actually do it until I moved in here. I stopped at 70 for personal reasons that are completely unrelated to this, but it was kind of catastrophic for me, and then it tumbled into this. My plan of action to right this wrong and pay everybody back is exactly what I was doing before this, which is just stream, monetize myself better, stay consistent, and just pay it off. It might not be the fastest thing in the world, but it's better than doing nothing. Beforehand as well, but especially now, I had also considered coming back to YouTube. At the end of the day, the Sky House was a nightmare, and we all know it. And even if after this video the climate is bad and the way that I'm seeing has just changed forever, I'm still going to be streaming no matter what, because that's my job, that's my passion, that's my love, and that's what I'm going to do, because that is exactly the same thing that I was doing that people put faith in me in the first place. So I'm going to pay this money back doing that. After that, if it's appropriate for me to leave, then I will. Then I'm totally fine with that. But for now and for me, the creditors let me borrow this money because at one point in time, they love the content that I create, and I'm going to give that to them. The bottom line is, I have outstanding debts with a bunch of creditors. Any and all fluff I said doesn't actually matter. I'm only telling it for you, the viewer. For the creditors, that just doesn't matter to them. They want their money back, and that's completely fair. And as such, the only solution is to pay them back immediately, period. Next, I want to talk about the allegations surrounding me, and I want to clear up a lot of misinformation of things that have been alleged against me. I believe wholeheartedly that it was no one's intention to fabricate anything to try to cancel me. But in order to pursue the full truth, I have to clean up all this misinformation and iron everything out, no matter how much it might hurt. I'm gonna start with Samuelson. Samuelson's twitlonger alleges that his keyboard had water poured all over it. I told him I would go to prison unless I got $55,000. Instead, I took that money and I used it to fund the mansion. I agreed to pay him $1,000 a month after a 3-month grace period. To this day, I haven't paid him a single penny. I made up a story about my father having cancer in order to get the aforementioned money, or any money at all. That I made up a story about my father getting dick surgery instead, that there's someone that I owe more money to than him, that I would take full credit, even when he was in the room, about funding in the mansion, that I would treat my roommates to fancy dinners and Vegas trips using his money, and that I would threaten to kick him out subtly, like when we were living together. So here's what's true, here's what needs context, and here's what's false. Again, I do not think that Sam is lying in anything that he says. Assuming because he didn't use screenshots, I'm just gonna guess that he just got it from memory and he drew it out with trauma, because I know firsthand how much he has been through in his entire life. And I'll be honest, when I read this at first, I was very angry, but I quickly had to realize that I'm also a part of that trauma. I also caused him that pain. So I have no right to be mad or angry about this. But just because of that, it doesn't mean that I can't just let it be what it is. I'm going to take the time to kind of clear up any faulty information that, exists in his twitlonger, and we'll do it together in order. His keyboard had water poured all over it the night he took my router. This is in reference to the night where, while I was streaming, trying to respond to everything all at once, he took my router. He and a few others had a plan to just, shut the stream down by taking my router and leaving. The next day when he came back, he claimed that there was water poured into his keyboard because he typed the twitlonger at the house. So he said that he had to pour water out of the keyboard. On Messenger, he told me that at first only 2 of the keys were broken, but yet when he got there, he had to pour water out. And I'm sure that all of you know, when you pour water into a keyboard, even a little bit of water will break the entire thing. I can assure you, nobody poured water on his keyboard. I would assume that he thought that because, again, I do have a screenshot out there of me threatening people's property if they break a guest rule or something. So probably from that, he was afraid for his things. However, in the 6 months that he's been living with me here, I've never threatened anyone's things at all in any capacity like I would the other house, for 0%. So I both understand why he would be worried about something like that happening, but I'm only conveying to you that ever since moving in this house, that is just not a part of me anymore. Not to mention, I've never actually done that in my entire life, and we're going to talk about that later. Let's continue. Now, the next 2 allegations I'm about to read are the reason why I think that trauma and pain are clouding his memory, because frankly, what he wrote actually never happened, and in one instance is impossible. I'm going to read to you the full allegation here so that there's no mistake. Okay, he writes, "He told me he would go to prison and his career would be over unless he received a significant amount of money. After several back and forth messages, I eventually agreed to lend him $55,000. Okay, so that's the first claim, right? I need money or I'm going to prison. And so then after a back and forth, he gives me $55,000 that he believes is being used to eliminate IRS debt. The next one reads, instead of taking the money I lent him to pay off his debts, he decided to use it to rent out the infamous Sky Mansion. Okay, so that's the second claim. In total, I told him I need money or I'm going to prison. But instead of paying off whatever debt that was, I said I'm going to rent the mansion instead. Are you with me? Okay, so first off, Sam did know what the money was for. He says it right here. He'd been asking if I needed the money for a house deposit. The money was never for the IRS at all. I think that he is conflating a memory because we did talk about the IRS before, for sure, but it was never about IRS debt. The money was never going to go to the IRS debt, but that's not what makes this impossible. What makes his statement impossible is that I never had the money to sneak off with anyway. Sam handled the deposit. The money for the deposit never hit my account, and here's proof. These are 4 checks that Sam created in order to land the deposit for the mansion. 4 checks of $7,500 paid to our landlord. That's not to say I don't owe him this money. I still do. I incurred the debt as we had agreed. So it was still a loan of a large sum of money. His generosity cannot be questioned at all. But there was no deception on where it was going, and I didn't have direct access to it at any time. Did he ever give me money directly? Yeah, he gave me a month of rent along with moving expenses. He really took care of me. Then he gave me an additional $1,600, but see, that wasn't for me directly. That was because the amount on the initial deposit checks were short because Sam's checks has a limit, and the limit is $7,500. The landlord required $31,600, so Sam sent me the difference. And then he says, and this is playfully, I promise, no more till you pay me back. And he held that to be true. Then I immediately gave my landlord that $1,600 that Sam just sent me, plus the 1 month rent early so that I couldn't give myself a chance to f things up. And after that, I didn't have much left to do anything with, really. But on my end, that was perfect. The decisions I've made and the debt that I incur make me one of the biggest morons in the world. But my hope is that you, Sam, and you, the viewer, by the time you end this video, you'll recognize that I might be dumb as hell, but I'm not a monster. Sam saved my life and believed in me and showed me faith like many others have, and I failed him and all of you. And it sounds dumb, but I want to fail everybody for the right reasons. I didn't steal from you, Sam, or take money behind your back. I really thought that I could do it, but I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And now back to the other allegations. I made an arrangement to pay him $1,000 a month after 3-month grace period. That's completely true. Before he gave me the money, I did pledge to that. Obviously, that didn't happen. I didn't get my footing in 3 months and I didn't really move, but that is true. That is what I told him. To this day, I haven't paid him back a single penny. Technically, this is true, but only because I would not let him deduct any aid that I've given him from the debt that I owe him. Obviously uneasy about the money, he would try to barter away to either cut the debt in half and then just call it even, or try to pay rent at the mansion so that he can at least think that his money is going somewhere. And I kept telling him, no, Sam, I don't want you to deduct anything from the rent. You're living in the mansion. You want to pay $2,000 when everyone else is living free? That's ridiculous. I don't want you to say instead, you just owe me 20 grand and we'll call it even. No, I'm going to pay you the full $55,000. Things like that, where here and there, if things were rough, I would help him with things, even though they would be small, but I would never deduct it. The biggest example is right after the Sky House, he came to live here with me for completely free, and I would not deduct it from anything. I didn't even bring that up because I know the pain that he was in, and I know that I played a part in it. So I opened up my home. I let him hold his stuff here. I'm only saying that because, yes, I haven't directly deposited any money into that debt, but I didn't want to take advantage of a situation where he needed me and now I'm trying to leverage the money that I owe him in order for him to get a comfortable spot. No, that's trash. I didn't want to do that. I'm not gonna have him pay money for rent in a mansion where no one's paying money. No, that's stupid. That's not fair. I want to give him back the full money. That's why I had that highlighted. I'm going to read this in full from the actual twitlonger because of just how chaotic some of these sentences are, and then I'm gonna go over what I have to go over. When he messaged me asking for money, he told me the reason he went broke is because he spent all of his money helping his dad pay for his cancer treatment. This struck an emotional chord with me because I have personally sacrificed a lot of my own time and even money helping my mom during her time of sickness. Here's the worst part that I don't think I'll ever get over. His dad never had cancer. I repeat, he made up this story about his dad having cancer as a way to manipulate someone he calls a good friend into giving him money. The excuse he had told me is that his dad lied to him about having cancer and instead used the money on a cosmetic surgery for his penis. I am not joking. This is the excuse that he has used several times. I know it's hilarious, but it just makes it harder to take my situation seriously when he turns it into such a joke like that. Absolutely nothing in what I said to him was a joke. The only reason why he is saying this is because I refused to show him screenshots of proof. I'm now going to explain exactly what happened. As you can probably tell, this part of the twitlonger was what was hard for me to not be frustrated at because I was getting emails strictly about Samuelson's twitlonger. And in these emails, people were alleging that I got surgery on my dick. And for whatever reason, I don't know where they found this in his twitlonger, but they alleged that I groomed and sexually abused people. But from Sam Twitlonger. This is the one that really got me, but I can't even be that mad at Sam. I just could not believe what people were saying, but let's get into it. Only because this is so serious, I am going to have to read this, and I'm really hoping that any and all news outlets that said that I got dick surgery or made any misinformation on this at all would just clear this up for me. That would be amazing. This situation began on July 2nd, 2017. I got a very cryptic message from my father out of nowhere saying, "I'm sorry, there's not a lot of time. I love you." This came out of nowhere. We hadn't talked for 2 days and then boom. I frantically started messaging him when I read it 30 minutes later, pleading for him to give me context. I turned to my stepmother and asked her about what the message meant. She said that she had no idea, which was even more alarming to me. Her first suggestion was that he was trying to make me feel guilty and maybe he had been drinking. But when I pressed her a bit more, she told me that he's having a test on his kidneys because they found something. My entire world just shattered. At that moment, I had a fair amount of money, so I instantly sent it to him in the same way I usually did at the time. The method would take a few days, but it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to get him something. But just as soon as I did, I was told by my stepmother that my father got surgery on his dick and he didn't have any health concerns because if he had something life-threatening, I would know. I instantly castigated him and blocked him out of my life forever. And I completely lost control of myself for like 2 weeks. I canceled the money thing the next day, and I ended up, when it came back to me, just spending it on bills and outstanding power bills from previous homes. On August 5th, I was venting to Sam about how I got broke. In this statement, I say that I used the money to help my father with his surgery for cancer. I didn't want to tell him the truth of the situation because it was so embarrassing. I could have, and should have, probably just told him that I spent it on bills. But being fiscally responsible isn't even me, so it felt less believable than me telling him what actually happened. And I had to eat it. When I finally told him the truth, he called me out for lying to him. He still felt that I had the money, or he was angry I didn't give it all to him, which I understand. I didn't show Sam screenshots at the time because I didn't want to unblock my dad, dig it up, and then show it to him. He accused me of lying about this several times, but I just could not bring myself to find those receipts. Now, this twitlonger has the ultimate call out, so I will provide the ultimate proof. I was prepared to never speak to my father again. This was a buildup. It wasn't just this. There's a lot of other issues that we've been having, and I did not want to talk to him, but soon after that twitlonger came out and I saw what was going on, I had to unblock him, get these receipts for you, but I did you one better. I called him, we talked on the phone about this, and I recorded it, and I have it here for you right now for all of you to hear. Pause. Before I share this with you, I need to share a disclaimer. I reached out to Samuelson last night. After talking to my father and listening to the conversation, it just felt way too heavy for the public's ears. I pitched an idea to him, which was, let's settle this privately, and if you feel like the proof I have is enough, you can make a statement to the tune of, Sky's dad didn't have cancer, but he didn't make the story up, he was also misled. He had responded by saying, if it says he doesn't have cancer, then I'll consider it, which made me realize that I feel he might have missed the point of my message, so I want to clarify it here. I am not claiming that my father has or had cancer. I am expressing that I was misled to believe something was seriously wrong with him, and when I searched for answers, I was met with cryptic statements and silence. I panicked, and I set aside money that I could have used to chip away at my debt to Sam. I hadn't committed this money to him directly, but when you're in debt, it's never really yours. When I found out the actual truth, I went off the grid and I paid past power bills. I did not have Sam in mind or anyone for that matter. Both are debts to me, so they played similar roles in my decisions. The only difference is that you don't have to talk to the power bill, and I wasn't feeling like talking to anyone. I took said misinformation and burdened Sam with it when I vented to him, completely forgetting his relationship to cancer. And just to be completely clear about something, no money was given to me by Sam to help my dad. It was for the house only. Venting or not though, misinformation is still misinformation. I have to own that and take accountability. Much like how if you get caught with a fake $100 bill, even if you don't know how you got it, you get in trouble. But my panic wasn't created from lies. I didn't make up this story. It's a conclusion I came to that I don't feel is unreasonable. The beginning of the call is my father wanting to see the messages that he and my stepmom sent me. I'm going to get straight to the part of the conversation where he talks about his kidneys. I wasn't sure if Sam would make a statement or if he would just say that my dad doesn't have cancer. He told me that he made his twitlonger because he felt like he had no other option. And with this phone call and this disclaimer, I feel the exact same way. So here it is. Okay, at first she says she doesn't know like what it is, but then this is where she tells me it's the kidney. Here we go. That's the one where she says he's having tests on his kidneys. They did find something, but there's no definite conclusion.
Okay, so yeah, they saw a spot on my kidneys. No, I kind of remember that, but all that was benign.
Okay, sure. You knew that.
It was that stuff was benign. But
I know, but like this lines up with your messages. Like I'm spamming her trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm glad that it was benign. But Dad, you're the only one that knew that. I didn't know that. And you wouldn't respond to me. So what am I supposed to think?
Okay, Gregory, calm down.
No, I'm not gonna calm down, dude. I didn't know. You're the only one that knew it was benign. Why didn't you respond or tell me? When you send a message like that, And then I go and ask your wife, and she says they found something on the kidneys. You don't find candy on the kidneys. It's typically nothing good. And the first thing everyone thinks is cancer. That's not unreasonable. But only you knew it was benign. You
Gregory,
wouldn't tell
okay,
me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that there was this big mix-up. I'm sorry, but I didn't. At no point I ever said anything about cancer to anybody.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't say anything about cancer. It's just when you send something like that, and then I hear there's something on your kidneys. That's what I'm gonna think, and that's on me. That's
sorry,
on
Gregory. I'm sorry, and I mean, and even now, there's just a lot of stuff going on. So if you can look into your heart and think about it and forgive me, I would appreciate that.
No, Dad,
Or you take as much time.
No, I do. It's just I heard a lot of people when I thought that you were not gonna that something was gonna happen to you, and I jumped the gun on the assumption. I could admit that, but I tried to get answers, and no one was giving it to me, and you weren't responding, and says something's on your kidneys. I'm gonna freak out. I think that anybody would. And you've told me about your health concerns before, so then I did not know I'd react this way to you things. Sorry, but okay. At this point of the conversation, I just have to take a minute to calm down. We talk a little bit about other things, and then he says he has to go. And then I ask him one final question before he goes, because obviously there's two things I have to just confirm for everybody. Okay.
Look. Call me later if you want. I'm getting another call coming in, and it's my job. I'm at home today. I took the day off because I've been working and had this COVID stuff with the county. We're under a lot of pressure.
Okay. Then I just have to shoot my shot, and I'm so sorry if this is uncomfortable, but did you get surgery down there?
Yeah.
That's all I need. And that was the phone call. I freaked out. I jumped the gun on an assumption because I didn't have information and I only got cryptic shit coming at me. I have to own up to that. But I only want to establish I didn't make this up. This isn't something random. And I would never make up something like this. And I did not get surgery on my dick. I don't blame Sam at all. There is absolutely no way that Sam was supposed to know that. I denied him proof. I had to eat that. He posted it out. That's still on me. It sucks that people turned it into whatever it is now, but that is the truth. Sam has an excuse. Anyone else that's spreading wild misinformation does not. Sam alleges that there's someone that I owe more money to than him. The person that he's saying in his twitlonger, the one that he won't name, is someone that I have a very complicated and specific relationship with, especially when it comes to money given versus money borrowed. He and I are still in contact, and our friendship is pending pretty much this entire statement that I'm making. He has my full permission if he wants to say anything and everything he wants about whatever goes on behind the scenes with us financially. That's up to him. But he specifically told me to keep him out of it. I'm only bringing this up because it was in Sam's statement and I have to address it because obviously it's being addressed to me. He then alleges that I would take full and complete credit for funding the mansion, even when he was in the room. The house brand was called the Sky House. I own that to protect the people that I am living with. At the end of the day, we were living with a bunch of people on a lease where we shouldn't have been living with that many people. That's illegal. If I was forthcoming about the information or where money comes from to fund whatever I'm doing, that's gonna put people at risk, straight up. That might also put Sam at risk of just being annoyed for people thinking that he's made of money and then people are gonna come to him. Like, there's a multitude of reasons. Just like in the mansion, only my name was on the main lease. There were co-tenants, but honestly, that was for show. That was it really did not have any legal binding anything. It's just the one name was mine. If I go down, only I go down. I don't want anyone else going down with me if things happen because these are my actions. That's my name on the lease. Simple as that. That I would treat my roommates to fancy dinners and Vegas trips using his money. Okay, Sam has every right to be frustrated with me here. I really dropped the ball on that one. Entering the house, I did not have any money, and so my dumbass is thinking, oh, okay, well, it's not technically his money because his money went in the deposit, but when you're in debt, as I've learned, growing older. When you're in debt, nothing is your money until the debt is over. Until you pay back everybody, you don't have money. It's not your money. At that time, I had just got done doing a job. I had, not a lot, but enough. After I paid rent and everything, I had maybe 1 or 2 G's. And I used to gamble a lot way back in the day. So I have free suites at the MGM and free room service. And so yeah, we went and the trip was cheap, and I won enough money to buy my best friend an escort, and I did. It's not fun admitting that on camera, but I mean, it is the truth. And I didn't it's just a shitty thing to do. There's no excuse. I didn't recognize how painful that was. Instead of winning the money and buying an escort or even going at all, I mean, all of it should have just gone to him or whatever the next debt was. That's just 100% me, and I think that is definitely contributed to a lot of the pain and trauma that he feels after all of this, because he didn't like the people that I was taking, but even still, that's all on me, 100%. Sam, I know that was torturous, and if I could take it back in a moment, I 100% would. I'm so sorry that I did that to you. My intentions don't matter. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. He then alleges that I threatened to kick him out subtly. So the reason why this is yellow and not like true or false is because it wasn't subtle. I directly confronted him about it. Every month, at least once, he would be very frustrated with the fact that I'm not moving or doing anything, and I was kind of just depressive and paralyzed, of course. But he invested in a house with people that he doesn't like, and he's seeing these Vegas trips, and he's just noticing that nothing is really happening. I don't blame him for being angry. He would message me about once a month, pretty mean, venti sort of texts about how much I ruined his life and stuff. And I kind of just took it on the chin, because I get it. And so I just thought maybe we shouldn't live together, because every time I make a wrong decision, I always get this extra added patting of guilt that just didn't help me move. A lot of my housemates were very conscious about things that would keep me paralyzed, and that was one of them. But I never really told him that or did anything about it. I should have been seeking help, but I just kind of stayed still and did nothing. I thought the solution would be for him to go to a place where he doesn't have to be surrounded with my inactivity and people that he doesn't like. But obviously the solution was for me to get out of the situation or get help. I tried to push the responsibility of making change on him, and that wasn't fair. And so that's the story of that. I don't really know if it's possible for me and Sam to heal our relationship, but in conclusion, this entire situation is just nothing but upsetting. And so I want to repeat that I don't think that Sam had any real malice in his statement. I don't think that he tried to fabricate any truths. I don't think that he was doing that just to take me out, nothing like that. No, I think that it was just genuine pain, and that is stuff that I caused. So while I am frustrated with the way that things turned out, it probably pales in comparison to the pain that he's been feeling since this entire thing was conceived. But he's heard enough at my mouth for one lifetime. The only thing to do now is to make things right and get him this money back, and we'll just take it from there. I know for a fact that he's done talking about it, and honestly, I am too, so I'm putting that just completely to rest. Next up is Melissa, aka FF Sade. Like she says in her statement, I've considered her a very close friend of mine, even one of my best friends. My best years on YouTube and on Twitch were connected to her because she would always be right next to me in most of our setups in the home. And whenever I felt like I needed motivation to continue or to do something, I would just look over at her. We had this bitter rivalry. If one of us did something good, we'd be like, oh man, I just love getting this opportunity from Riot. That was us. Out of everyone that has come forward, she has lived with me the longest and had the closest relationship with me. Frankly, I'm disappointed with the way that she took her statement in a few ways that I'll discuss, but I assume that she's really just trying to be a speaker for the voices that were too afraid to speak up at all, which I can appreciate and understand. I think she was more focusing on the pain that I caused to people, and it just wasn't a good look to defend me in any way, and I get that. Melissa's statement alleges that there were 2 main rules. Do not under any circumstance wake me up, and you must notify me about guests that intend to visit. I threatened to break something of value in a room unless I got $350 in cash for breaking the guest rule. I would strong arm major decisions without any regard for house meeting unanimous decisions. My favorite people would have more say than the people I don't like. Social hierarchy was based on what I use from slaves or workers. People who played video games all day I considered low tier. If I or a higher tier resident didn't like someone, they would have to pay an additional fee to live with me. There was a tax on couples living in the house. Confronting me was impossible because I kept name searching myself on all social media, and I was on it with what people were saying about me, and everybody was afraid to speak up because I would hear it and then react violently. An example of this is an incident where I spilled Coke all over the rec room floor after getting into an argument with a roommate. So here's what's true, what needs context, and then what's false. At first, her twitlonger didn't feel like an attack. It looked like a raw, non-sugar-coated look at the happenings in the Sky House. But now I feel completely different. Much of this can't be contested with evidence because it's only experience-based. Luckily for those things that I was concerned about, I was able to question about 11 roommates. And just as I thought, some of these things have faulty information. Some of the things are just not true. And then some of them would have been impossible for her to have even known. And once again, I do not see this as her trying to be manipulative or spread anything with malicious intent at all. I can almost 100% say she is being a speaker for other people's experiences that didn't want to come forward, mixed with her own, and then she put that into a document. But context, evidence, and testimony are going to be just what I need to iron this out, so let's get started. I know she didn't say this, but in reference to this picture, many people alleged that I forced her there, or I was the one that was telling people where to go. That is absolutely not true. Everyone got their own place. It was literally everyone for themselves. You see a space in the house, you put your computer there. It's that simple. I in no way, shape, or form made that cardboard thing. I didn't tell her to keep it up. I didn't put her there in that corner. No. In fact, I'm right next to her. I'm literally just right off screen. We picked that place together. So those two rules are true, but they are not rules that started at the beginning of the Sky Houses. Those rules were adaptive. The first rule was made in the first house because one morning Zero and Mewtwo King decided that they were going to have a screaming contest on stream. I quickly shut that shit down and I told everybody in a house meeting, please don't wake me up. That was the conception of that rule. I'm going to go into the guest rule of how it was made, but obviously the elephant in the room, let's just get to it. I threatened to break something of value in every room unless I was paid $350 in cash for breaking the guest rule. Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to just go out and say it. Obviously, no matter what context I give, no matter what explanation I give, it is never fine to resort to this as a way to get your way. I've never done it to anyone, and whenever I would say it in my heart, I really knew that I wasn't going to do it. I thought at the time, oh, well, if I'm not really gonna do it, then it's fine, but that's using anxiety as a weapon, and that is just trash. I'm gonna give them nicknames here, but two people that I'll call Rose and Pearl had later on expressed to me the terror of what that did to them when I actually said it for the first time. Even though I approached them privately and said, I'm not gonna do it, and I think I might have broken a little $2 plate and was like, oh no, I'm doing it, but no, I've never actually done it. But they were the ones that taught me that what you're doing here is you're making everyone afraid that it's going to happen. I never considered that fact, because again, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm not gonna do it, but here we are, and here that is. I've learned this much too late, and it just makes me sick. In something completely unrelated, I did a similar thing, but once I realized that I was using anxiety as a weapon, I shut down and I apologized, and that was it. Discovering that I did the same thing on a grander scale is something I could never apologize more for, and it tears me up. It tears me up every day. It's something that I feel extremely guilty for. Anyway, back to the facts. The guest rule was created for a multitude of reasons. The most important one was that I was responsible for anyone that came in. Anyone and everyone. If anything happens to anyone and I don't know, I'm just completely
Hey, so while I was editing, I actually realized the perfect example of this, and I'll try to be brief. In one of our homes, a guest, decided that he wanted to get downstairs fast by jumping off of the second story balcony. He hit his arm and his head and got a concussion. I literally found him on my couch, almost trying to pass out with blood coming from the back of his head. People were instructed to watch them, but there was only one person and they were playing Overwatch. And apparently he had been on that couch for a while, and the people upstairs that witnessed it just didn't even say or do anything about it. I walk in, no one's willing to drive him to the hospital. He's about to pass out. That's not what you want to do with a concussion. So I had to go upstairs and figure out what the was going on. And that's the kind of situation. That was what I'm most afraid of, and then it actually just happened. I just wanted to share that quick one with you.
And because we live in such a complicated situation, it's really hard to navigate the rules and what's going on. And I mean, when you're living with 20 people, this is obvious, but guests just got out of hand. Some guests would come over randomly and just film things around the house and not tell anyone. And then I later find them on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Some guests would come over and the people that invited them were just not home. Some guests would leave trash all over the place or break things, or even sometimes they would steal things. Some guests would just be curious and walk through the house and try to just go into doors and in rooms. And two of the bigger problems of guests are kind of a little more personal. I'm a survivor of myself, right? So that's a permanent scar. I don't like hearing noises I can't confirm. I don't like hearing voices I don't know. I don't like having people in my house and I don't know who they are or where they are or why they're here. It's ingrained in me. I don't think it'll ever go away. That's just a part of my life. And then what started happening is that I wouldn't know that people were here, and then, a lot of their friends that would come over a lot of the guests that would come over, I mean, they were fans of mine and they would want to talk or get pictures or hang out or even get an autograph, which is all of that was completely fine. It's just sometimes when I'm done with the video, when I'm done with the project, like I want to be able to go downstairs and just go on the couch and just like relax. But if there's a guest there, then I want to be, you know, I kind of want to be this Guy Williams that they're used to seeing on the screen. Now, the personality difference between me and that person, you know, when I'm happy is not that much, but if I'm tired, I just want to sleep. I just want to relax. I just don't want to, you know, do anything. The instance that led to that message though was one time when I had slept in, noise had woken me up. Okay, whatever, it happens. I just put in my earplugs and go back to bed. It was very hot, so I leave and I'm in my boxers. Now, of course, I really hate the way my body looks, but everyone in the house at one point in time has seen me in my boxers, right? So I'm just like, okay, whatever, I'll just go out and I will just turn on the AC and then go back in. When I go out, someone is walking up my stairs and they are filming and they see me and they just see me in my boxers and they're filming me. And of course they put their phone down and I don't get mad. Like I don't freak out. I just like, I play it off as a joke and I just go back in and lay down. But I mean like that was just infuriating. But it was infuriating to the point because I had over 50 house meetings in total begging people to just send me a message. Just tell me if anyone is here. I had begged and pleaded and cried to everyone by just saying, please respect me enough to send me a message on Facebook. That's it. And the guest rule would get broken over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I always had to adjust. And I was upset because at the time I was paying most of the rent. I was paying all of the bills. Like I just, you know what I mean? Like I don't even mean to seem like I'm a domineering tyrant there, but it's like, damn, very simple rules in this home that you guys are living in for. Not all of you for free, but a good amount of you. And that's all I'm asking for, and I never got it. So, intending to leave the group chat, I said what I said, and I left the group chat, and you know what? I didn't have a guest problem after that for just about a year and a half. Does that mean I should have done it more? No. It means that I have no business being in a leadership position if the only way I can get my way is by threatening people with anxiety. That's trash. So it's like something it's just, that's part of my life now. It's a meme forever. If I knew I was going to be the Loch Ness Monster and ask people for $350, like I would have never messaged that to anyone. So, but it's done. The kitchen rule was something we generally had fun with. There were a few people that thought it was unfair, but most people were neutral or positive, which was pretty much enough to make it something. I think Melissa's account makes it sound a lot worse than it was. The only reason why that's kind of surprising is Melissa never did it. Melissa stayed in her room almost the entire time. She would rarely come downstairs. Many of the social interactions she talks about in her statement are impossible for her to have witnessed because she really wasn't a part of the culture of us at all. So it's like, I feel odd about her take on a few things because of that, but yeah, the kitchen rule, the punishment for not doing it was like $5 extra on everybody's rent. But that's the thing. I was on the low paying for a lot of people's rent. So it was like, yeah, it's an extra $5, but it's $5 that I'm already paying. It was a mess of a situation. It was just a mess. I would strong arm major decisions without any regard for house meeting unanimous decisions. The only decisions in the house history that I've ever really strong armed was giving someone his own room and moving 3 people in without asking them. If I wanted to do something, I would just do it. Typically the things that I would do would not be that major, but like, for example, if I wanted to like play a game on the big screen, I would just play a game on the big screen. Typically I wouldn't have to kick anyone off because I mean, you know, everyone has their own station, but like that's what I mean. Like if I just do what I want to do. Bigger examples of this is like sometimes I would say like, all right, well, let's change the living room because this is like not efficient. Let's make it bigger. So I do what I want to do. I'm like, all right, everybody get up. Let's do this. Let's move all this shit. Let's make sure that everything is like, let's move this couch here and this couch here. And obviously we would all chip in and do it. And typically things would look better. And I think that people were enthusiastic about changing the environment after a while and like trying to optimize our space. When it came to house cleanliness, that's not really a discussion. That's gavel, that's me. Because again, these are the Sky homes and I didn't want anyone coming over to some nasty ass place. That's why we had cleaning regimens in place. Everybody in the group chat would complain about things being messy. No one had a solution. I created one. It worked out pretty well. An example of me just putting my foot down and doing something is like when there was a big argument about what time people can wake up and make noise while everybody else is asleep. Someone was saying that they want to wake up at 8 a.m. The other people say they sleep until 1. They argued, and then I just said, all right, this is what we're doing. The median of these 2 times is like noon, and then to go to bed is this, like, and of course everyone's like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Things like that, where it's like, I don't want to vote, you guys are taking way too long, this is what it's gonna be, and that's it. But then they break it the next day, so they, you know, they do what they do. It has nothing to do with me. Also, her comment about the lowest tier housemates not really getting a say is like pretty offensive because in house meetings everybody has one hand. No hand means 2 votes. So Like, and again, these are house meetings that she didn't really attend. Whenever we would vote on something, if it was unanimous, I wouldn't shut everyone down and say, nope, my way. Like, no, not at all. It would never be like that. And everyone's votes counted. And in fact, there are people that I liked more, and the people that I didn't like as much, I'm not gonna go up to them and ask them for advice or things or ask them to hang out. That doesn't mean they don't have less of a say. That just means that we're not really compatible. But I shouldn't be chastised for that. I would honestly say that money spoke the most. If you had money and you wanted a bigger place to live, then you would get it. And that doesn't make you higher tier, because then everybody else would be like, yes, please give him that big area so we all have to pay less. People who play video games all day were considered low tier. I want to clarify this now. In reality, there really isn't any, like, the tier list, that's just, I like using game terminology when I describe things, but it's not that they're a subhuman. It's like, I put Melissa and D1 in S tier because for me, I just loved looking at them work, and that inspired me. With people playing video games all day, if you don't have a goal and you're not doing anything, it's torturous for me to watch that because I want people to succeed. I would have house meetings where I would explain, hey, look, can you guys try to just have a goal? Whatever it is, I don't care what it is. Even if it is playing video games all day and trying to reach like a rank in league, cool, talk to me about it. I wanna know what you're doing to pursue your goals. It was just painful to see people running in a circle doing the same thing all day. That's all that was. That's it. And that's why the tier thing kind of bothers me, because again, Melissa was glued to her chair. She had so much work to do all the time. Only thing she wanted to do was drink Coke and draw. That is it. I am not over exaggerating. So for her to be commenting again on the cultures and the hierarchies and stuff, it doesn't make sense to me. It's clear that someone's talking through her, which again is fine. I'm just clarifying. Or if a higher tier resident didn't like someone, they would have to pay an additional fee to live with me. And there was a tax on couples living in the house. So yes, there was a couples tax, but hear me out, it's not what you think, and it wasn't started by me. Basically, since people were not paying like per space, everybody was kind of paying equally, but some people had larger spaces than others. Two roommates began dating. Let's just say, for the sake of this, that everyone pays $300, okay? Two roommates start dating. They sleep in the same bed, meaning they no longer need the space for the other bed. So they think, wait, if we're taking the same space and room as one person, well, we shouldn't pay $300 and $300 because that's $600 worth of rent. Since we're taking up only the space of one person, we only want to pay $300, which means they're paying $150 each. Now others argued like, okay, wait, now we all have to pay more to make up for the difference because you guys are dating. That's trash. You guys should still pay $300, $600. Then they were like, but that's dumb because we're giving you guys more room. Well, we don't want more room. We want cheaper rent. So, we all kind of talked about it a bit and we came to the conclusion that if you're a couple and you're living together and you're making the room bigger, but you don't want to, it's not fair to only pay rent for one person, you would pay like 1.5 times rent. That was the couple's tax. So that was that. I'm assuming that's what Melissa meant when she was talking about a higher fee if I don't like you. But we could all just collectively throw that out. That is just, it's never been true. It's not true. Me liking you or a higher tier person not liking you means you have an extra fee. Not true at all. Even people that I didn't like, if they didn't have money for rent, I would give it to them. In fact, on the low, like I said before, I've been paying for half of them for the whole time and pretending like they were paying. There was no tier list or discrimination when it came to my financial generosity as it regarded to rent, period. Why no one spoke up? Confronting me was impossible because I was so keen on name searching myself all over the internet that everybody was afraid to speak up because I'd hear and react violently. An example of this is an incident where I spilled Coke all over the rec room floor after getting into an argument with a roommate. They definitely had to tread lightly when it came to the Sky matchup. Okay. So the only reason why I know that this is not the complete truth of it, where it's kind of like there are things that I have to just adjust, is that I do not search myself online. When I upload a video, I have to like take off my glasses because I'm too afraid of looking at the views from my previous one. There are some times that I tweet something that I think is good and I don't know how many retweets it has yet. So again, I take off my glasses and I just blindly click around. During this whole ordeal and many other things, I have asked over 10 people, can you please read this for me? Can you please read this for me? I can't handle it. I can't handle reading things about myself ever. Can you read this to me and give it to me in a way that I can digest it for now? There has never been in the history of the world that I would ever seek for feedback on me. because I am a giant bitch. I'm not doing that. So no, I don't believe that's why people didn't stand up to me. Personally, I think in the house, a lot of people called me intimidating. I can't agree, but that is up to them. I'm very closed off. I don't like people knocking on my door. I usually have a sign that says don't knock. I rarely respond to messages. I like to just be in my room and be in my zone unless I'm drinking, and then I like to have fun. And I just think that I'm a very intense person. If you come up to me with a personal thing, it's not uncommon if I get too excited that I make it so loud that maybe somebody else will hear. It'll be a bigger issue. It's like this bigger deal. I'm very dramatic. So people aren't gonna feel comfortable coming to me one-on-one. In fact, someone told me something that I really appreciate, which is it's more that if someone comes and talks to me about something, I ask too many questions about it and they're not trying to dissect it all at once, and that's just, again, me being intense. I think there's a lot of reasons why people find me intimidating that are valid and probably, not good, but me name searching myself and like poking out criticisms is not one of them. Then she uses the incident where I spilled Coke all over the floor. I'm gonna include that story in the document below, but that has nothing to do with confronting me. That story has absolutely nothing about intimidation, confronting me, speaking up against me. It's completely two separate universes of thought. So like, I don't know why that was thrown in. Maybe to illustrate how angry I can get, but definitely not like anything to do with like standing up to me. It has nothing to do with that. Now, like I said, why did I have so much to scrutinize? Well, again, Melissa barely left her room. She really wasn't invested in the culture. She had the lowest attendance of house meetings. She never really went downstairs. She never participated in the cleaning thing in the kitchen, and she wouldn't really be qualified to talk about repeated acts of me strong-arming votes because she wasn't there to vote to begin with. The bottom line is Melissa was the most disconnected from the culture of the Sky House. Does that mean she's lying? No, not at all. But it does give me confidence in my theory that these are accounts from other people that have lived that didn't want to say anything. And it's clear to me with the people that I have voting that it was not the vast majority of people that felt this way, but that doesn't make it any less valid. I'm sure that I have taken actions in the house and said things and done things to make people feel like they were subhuman, but it was never anything deliberate. I mean, there's a bunch of excuses I can give. I think that spreading myself too thin with 20 people, I'm bound to make mistakes like that. And for whatever I have done or said to make you feel that way in any way that you didn't have a voice, you felt that you were subhuman, I am truly sorry. This is for you. I genuinely am sorry. It was never ever my intention to make you feel like you weren't worth it. Just got spread too thin. I feel I gave everybody a small piece of myself and never really had a deep personal relationship with almost anybody at the house. It's impossible for me to. And finally, Jisu. Over the past few weeks, I have asked mutual contacts of us what I should do about responding to you. Not a single person told me it was a good idea to analyze or respond to your twitlonger. Instead, they said that if I had anything to say, I should keep it short or say nothing at all. Seeing how badly I fucked up that live stream and hurt you from that, I would say that's good advice, and I agree with them. I feel like in doing that live stream, I missed my opportunity, and that's just an L I have to take. So I'm gonna take both pieces of their advice. I only have one thing that I want to respond to, and that's me keeping it short. And after this video, I'm gonna permanently keep your name out of my mouth. The only thing I wanted to clear up is when you asked if I actually cared about you, and I did, and I do. After Armor Cost, I spent months reaching out to you. I would ask about stupid shit or just come out of the blue and say something random, and it was a facade, but it was just me trying to hear from you. I picked up art for more than just the fun of it. I felt like it was also a way that I can get closer to you. And honestly, it was a very fun way to connect with you, even though I was absolute trash. You caught on though. You caught on so fast, and you recognized that all of my messages were just literal forced bullshit, and you wanted me to get to the point of why I was messaging you. But my motive was nothing else than genuine care and concern and guilt. I will never forgive myself for failing you. I was always ready and willing to give you a free place to live with your own room and bathroom, pursue litigation versus V, remind you that you're a survivor, but you're definitely not just defined by that. And looking back, I mean, that probably all just seemed hollow and empty, because if I couldn't help you back then, what the hell am I doing trying to help now? And it is totally fine and deserved to see my words as hollow. Sometimes they feel like they're not meaning as much to me either. But if there's one thing that I've ever said that I want you to please believe is that I do care about you. And I probably will for the rest of my life. Nothing I can do will ever undo the damage that I know that I could have prevented. I accept how negatively you feel about me, and I know you don't want me in your life forever, and that's my cross to bear. I would wish you all the luck in the world, but we both know that you've never needed it. Goodbye, Jisu. This video wasn't about clearing my name or trying not to get canceled. I'm not innocent. The mental abuse that I perpetuated in order to gain control of the house or the rules that I had set is completely unacceptable and abhorrent. I have no business being in a house like that, let alone being the leaseholder. So in trying to take the right steps so that everybody can heal, I want to go ahead and just apologize for a list of things. Rose and Pearl, I am so sorry for moving you across the country, saying that we were going to work only to be accosted by my childlike man baby behavior. As you're probably well aware, the reason why I wanted to host you, or why that one time I wanted to give you money for rent or food, is just because I know that I took so much time from you, and I know that you're working so hard just to make it here, and you just started streaming. So I figured if I could help in that way to let you just be stress-free for even a month, that's just a small portion of time that I took from you. And that's what I was trying to do. I wanted to shorten the time. You don't have to grind so much on stream. I'm going to shorten it for you by hosting you. You don't have to prey on donations. I was happy to give you that money. I'm not doing that to bribe you. I'm not doing that to make you like me. I did that because I wanted you to actually have some time that I stole from you. I wanted to give you some serenity and peace while you are dealing with your trauma. And I am so sorry that I did that. I really am. I'm sorry to the landlords that were involved in this. My previous landlord really does like me, but I'm just talking about everyone else that probably, they didn't know what they were running into and they ran into me. And it's not fair to them. I definitely paid everything off, and even though I never got a deposit back, like it did cover it with all the documents, but even still. I'm sorry that I rented your home under pretenses. I'm sorry to everybody that showed me their kindness only to see it be driven into the ground with really no way of knowing if it's ever gonna come back to you. The kindness that you showed me is what has really helped me though. Like at one point in time, you believed that I could use that well. Thank you. Thank you, and I'm very sorry, and it definitely will never. I'm sorry to Brandon, Woodie, Jisu, Shiva. I mean, anybody that's in my house that fell prey to something. I feel like I should have made the choices for the victims. They're obviously not going to be in the best state of mind, and it's up to me as an adult, especially the leaseholder, to actually bring the hammer down. But maybe I was just too cowardly to actually follow through with something. I don't know. There was a bunch of things that I regret and I could have done better, but that's neither here nor there, and the pain is already done. So I am very sorry. You should know that I have definitely really, really reflected on this, and I now know if it ever happens again in any capacity, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I am extremely sorry to the women in the Smash community. I've been playing Smash since 2002. Competitively. I would see the misogyny, but then I would just do nothing. And I know that's me being complicit. At first, I was too young to understand what misogyny even was. Then when I got older and I kind of understood it more, I felt like, well, you're being dramatic. These are just jokes. When there was a call to action to kind of cycle out the word rape out of our vocabulary when we're describing events in games, it almost felt like when that happened, it was like, okay, good. Now we're considered allies to women. But being an ally to anyone in a movement, it does not come with one finite action. It is a series of things and reprogramming so that we can actually talk on a level that isn't just clouded with bigotry, racism, and sexism. I want to hold myself accountable and explain my worst sin of misogyny and apologize for it. This wasn't one specific event, but it was ongoing and something I'm very ashamed of. I had trouble deciding if I even wanted to say it, but as I continued to edit and film, I figured it's best to get everything out. So specifically to Diana, Pearl, and Onips is who I owe this direct apology to. From housemates to guests, men would talk about them in ways that honestly would just disgust me. And it was on and on and on and on all the time. It got to a point where when something important needed to be said, nobody had input. But if we're having a party and a new profile picture drops, now we're having a grand presidential debate. My sin is that I took it out on the girls by not even wanting to be near them or try to like them because I just kept hearing about them all the time and it was suffocating. I would 100% get mad about it live when I would hear things that get too far, but I was too complicit in many things that were indeed problematic. Normalizing this behavior made me unaware of when my, quote, jokes would hurt feelings. Diana had criticized me about the toxic environment of my home, and she was absolutely correct. Diana had visited my home, and though I knew her first name, I would joke and call her Beth or something, which is a shtick I've been pulling for years. Something like Girl A or Beth, because it's like, oh, I'm gay, and I'm trying to use that as a punch when it's really not funny. A joke only happens when everyone is laughing at the punch. If someone gets hurt on the way down, it's bullying. Brandon Woodie taught me that, and I just didn't listen to him at the time. I completely recognize my part in creating a culture that is unsafe and just not fun for women, but I would like to say that I truly have changed, or at least I'm trying to. Diana, Pearl, Onips, Danny, Karina, Lauren, Jisu, Melissa, Leanne, I am sorry that I failed you as an ally and your friend. You didn't deserve to be around my toxic behavior, and there is no excuse for it. If there's anything I can do for you in any way, please reach out to me and I will do it. I'm sorry to everybody that was waiting for this and then I just took way too long. This isn't just like one accusation. This is like 7 years and people that I have known almost my whole life doing terrible things. I had to be that careful to make sure I get everything as accurate as I possibly can because this is important. I really do think the world needs to see how common abuse is. From what I gather from the Me Too movement, it's not about some sweeping generalization about women or men. I think it's literally just saying that women get abused and we're told like they don't get abused and they're liars, but they do. And it happens and they're rarely believed. And so when you have information like I do, you have to speak on it. And I know now, I understand now completely. So I'm sorry. I am very, very, very sorry. I think I could have played a much bigger role in the in the culture of Smash to make it a better place for women. I want to apologize to my old roommates, but I also want to offer what I think went wrong and why this thing kind of tumbled. I think that when this started, most of you saw me as just very, very generous. And here and there, little errands you would run just on my convenience while I'm streaming or editing because what I've heard some of you tell me is like, well, you're doing all this for us. The least I can do is this one thing. And I think I just got used to that. So I think it went from asking little small favors here and there to eventually evolving into this who now just openly demands shit to be done. I got very used to and accustomed to that lifestyle of me just paying for everything but not having to do any of the littler work. And that's created a very gross hierarchy. I didn't even recognize it was happening. And that's the scariest part. It just all seemed normal. I'd like to believe though, that when you first came into the house and we were first living together, that a small part of you really cared about me and liked me and maybe even loved me. And I'm telling you that that person still exists and I can still be that person and I will be that person again. And even if you're not there waiting for me when I'm done, I understand. I am so sorry to my audience. But now you get it. That's why I would do those sponsored videos, leave, and then come back. Because I needed to sustain this clearly unsustainable lifestyle. I thought that I had to do it. I was already in too deep. And I wouldn't come back because I couldn't bring myself to laugh. I just couldn't laugh. I couldn't be funny. And that's why I would keep leaving and coming back. And I'm hoping, if there's any of you left, that I get this debt paid and we're back. We'll obviously just have to see. I gotta let my actions speak. I know that I've told you guys this over and over and over again, so I'm gonna let my actions speak as loud as they can. I know a lot of you just say that I just have to be me on camera and then that's good enough, but not for me. I don't even like me. So it's like, I think, how can you like me when I hate me? And I'm not saying that for pity. I'm being serious. Like, you guys see me differently than I see myself, and I'm gonna be working on that too. I really am working on it. I'm sorry, Mom. I know you got inundated with comments on Reddit that you were reading. I also know you've been trying to get me out of this situation for a very long time, and I'm sorry. The son that you love is still here. He's still here somewhere. I just need some time to find him. And finally, Jisu, I'm sorry. If you made it this far in the video, I thank you. I've got really big dreams, but as I am now, I'm not really equipped to do them. I'm looking forward to making things right and unburdening myself completely. And all I can do is hope that you're here when I'm finally fully back. Thank you for watching.